If you're a tank enthusiast and live in California, you've probably heard of a place called the Military Vehicle Technology Foundation, also known as the Littlefield Collection, or just shortened as MVTF. The MVTF used to be one of the largest private collections of armored fighting vehicles in the United States until the owner, Jack Littlefield, died in 2009 and most of the collection sold off in 2013. The collection used to house more than 200 vehicles in its storage, but after the auctioning of the vehicles by the Collins Foundation, only 30 are left on site. When I heard about the Collins Foundation acquirement of the collection and the auction, I thought the collection was done in the public. But it wasn't until recently that I found out that they were still doing private tours for anyone still interested in viewing their Littlefield collection. So I decided to go check it out. So when we first arrive, we are met by the tour coordinator, Neil, who leads us through the entire collection and the tanks in it. Here, I'll let him do the talking now.
Tanks are designed to hurt people. They do not care who they hurt. Okay? They will gladly hurt you today as much as they'll hurt someone 60 years ago. Alright? Just remember that. We are going to get inside some tanks. The biggest accidents that happen with tanks is hatches. Hatches coming down on hands and chopping fingers off and stuff like that. So you need to bear that in mind when you're around them. So that's it. That's that spiel. So let's talk about where you're at. This is this collection was put together by one man, Jacques Littlefield, between 1975 and 2009, when he died at the age of 60 of colon cancer. In 1975, Jacques was 27 years old. His parents owned the Utah Mining and Construction Company, and they sold that company to General Electric for $2 billion in 1975. Jacques quit work, and he bought a 500-acre estate, which is what you're on, and he started collecting things. Tanks, some cars, fire trucks, there's a train system, a train set, if you know it's on the way down there. Those sit-down trains that you ride on. And lots of things. Wives, he had 3 wives, so he collected wives as well. But he died in 2009, and the entire collection, the family didn't want it, and so the entire tank collection was given to the Collins Foundation of Stowe, Massachusetts. So the tanks were given to the Collins, and the Collins said, great, thank you very much. A lot of them were scrap, a lot of them were doubles, and they said, we'll sell those at an auction, and we'll raise money to build a museum, put the good stuff in Stowe, Massachusetts. So there was an auction in July of 2014, and they sold a lot of the junk stuff, and they're going to build a museum. So that's the background to the museum. That's where it comes from. That's where the money comes from, you know, and that's pretty much it. Okay, so let's start talking tanks, shall we? All right. So come on over. Let's start the tour. But you have to listen to me before you can climb in stuff. All right. So listen to me, and we have all the time in the world. We can go on and on and on till 5, 6 o'clock tonight. All right. So no rush. All right. So why were tanks invented?
Is that wrong?
Yeah, it's a fair enough question, isn't it? Okay. Well, here's my definition of why. You need to watch this movie. Come on over, because they're making some noise. I want you to hear this.
There was a problem with the filming here. So what the tour guide said here was that the tanks were built in World War I to help the infantry cross no man's land by being able to resist the machine guns and shrapnels on the battlefield. Britain started the whole concept of the tanks and delivered it during the Battle of Somme in 1960. Now, an interesting fact that the tour guide mentioned here was that the first tanks were actually developed and crewed by the Navy, not the Army. Then this was news to me. I didn't know that.
Tips over with them as well. In the Navy, you have destroyers, cruisers, and battleships. Well, they started making small, medium, and heavy tanks from the get-go. Okay. All right. One more little movie, and then we're going to get in a tank. The next movie, we're going to show you what the very first tanks look like. Okay. All right. This is what the very first tanks look like. They had 7 men in them. They were about 8 feet high. They did about 3 miles an hour. If they had machine guns, they were known as females. If they had cannons, they were known as males. If they had one of each, they were hermaphrodites. That's as fast as it goes.
3 miles.
3 miles an hour. You can walk faster than this can drive. They weighed 27 tons. They had a 100 horsepower engine in them, which is nothing. All right, you get the idea? Not much of a vehicle, is it? Not very cool. The guns are hung off the side because back in the First World War, battleships had they had turrets, but a lot of guns were still on the side of the ships. And so that's how you would make it, right? Why would you do it any other way, you know? All right, okay, let's start talking some tanks here. So what is this?
A Matilda Mark II.
Matilda Mark II, excellent. What can you tell me about the Matilda Mark II?
It has a lot of armor.
Okay, anything else? Who used it? Whose tank is it?
British.
Exactly.
It has a 200 gun.
It does, well done. Oh, okay, you cheated. Matilda was used by the British Army, early Second World War. This is used in France in 1940 and then the Libyan desert in 1941, okay? Known as the Queen of the Desert. Why? Because as you said, it had 3 inches of armor on the front, which at the beginning of the Second World War was unheard of. No one had 3 inches of steel on the front. This is the tank, you heard of the Tiger I tank, right? The German Tiger Is. This is the reason the Tiger Is were built. Because the Germans came up against this tank and their guns couldn't penetrate the thick armor. And the Germans said, aha, we better get a tank with really good armor on it. And they built the Tiger I from that, okay? Now the problem with the Matilda is, have you ever been to London? In London they have those red double-decker buses, right? Well, this was driven by 2 bus engines, 2 diesel bus engines, which made it really slow. This thing could only do about 12 miles an hour. So in the Libyan desert against Italian tanks, this thing was excellent. When the Germans showed up in Libya in March of 1941, this thing was too slow and it was phased out. And they were shipped to New Guinea and Burma to fight the Japanese in the Far East, where most of them ended up. The Australians used lots of these vehicles. Okay? The symbol there is for the British 7th Armoured Division, the Desert Rats. They were the division that fought Rommel in the North African desert. The blue colour paint scheme, that works in the hot desert, apparently, in the haze, the heat haze, that helps you hide your vehicle. That's pretty much it for the Matilda. You want to get in the Matilda? Mm-hmm. Okay, let's get in the Matilda. Now you are the perfect size for a tank crewman. You're okay. You're okay. You're okay. The rest of you are too fat and tall. So, hey, Yuri, how you doing?
Hey, pretty good. How are you?
Good to see you.
You too.
Enjoying this?
Absolutely.
So this is Yuri. He used to work here, and on the Panther, he did a lot of the restoration work on the Panther tank. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was very lucky. I did the radios and the electronic stuff. That was my thing. Do the old World War II radio equipment. So yeah.
You're gonna help me today. Get the tour, right?
All right.
All right. So let's get in. I want to get in the Matilda first. All right. Who else? Come on. Bring your dad with you.
Okay. Watch out, okay? Well, that's a place to fall in. We're out.
So both feet first, and lower yourself in. So you want to get in the commander's position? Come over here. Put your both feet in there.
Okay. No, there's a loader seat, kidding.
Oh.
The commander has a cupola.
Okay, sit down. We're good. We're good.
You put your feet on the.
Both,
Yep.
put your both feet on there. Both together. You'll garrote yourself. All right. Okay, you're it. All right.
Good job.
You got it? Okay, there you are. You're the commander. Why don't you get in the driver's seat first?
Oh my
Where
gosh.
do I go?
Well, you want to try the driver's seat first, or you want to wait for these guys?
Come become the driver.
This is horrible.
If you're a tanker, you gotta be tough.
So tanks are cramped, oily, smelly, and claustrophobic. They're not fun.
Get in
Personally,
there,
this is not fun at all.
Feet first. All right, you're in. Okay, young man, sit down on that chair.
Oh my gosh.
I will not throw you.
You can't break anything, all right? Don't
Yeah,
worry.
don't worry.
All right.
I can't fit my head in here.
So we'll get this. So get your feet off that chair because the gunner sits there. There's a man that sits in front of you. The commander doesn't. You see? If you slide forward to sit in that seat, that's how you'd be the gun firer. You'd be the loader, you'd be the commander, and that's the gun firer. All right, so come on up. So what's your name again?
I know, that's how Periscope
Caden.
works.
Caden. Move forward, Caden, and you come up. What's your name?
Nathan.
Nathan. Head forward, and Nathan become the commander, and you see how cramped it is.
How's this?
Sit in that chair.
can't go close it.
Let me see. So small.
But I'm under. This is how I'm sitting. And my head's above.
Oh.
But you cannot fit into this position.
Can you see the? Is it a crosshair?
Huh? Kitten is fine. Kitten.
So guys, these vehicles will got two of them run. So don't push any
So you
buttons.
sit above Kitten. Nathan, you sit above.
Yeah, Nathan's like right next to him.
Next to him.
Are you sitting down?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So what is this position for?
He's the loader. He
You
loads the guns.
load the gun.
Yeah, the gun's right here. I can.
Who's like you shoot?
Caden, he's in the gunner seat right now.
Aim and shoot.
So just think about it. How these are you're too big, right? So the men they pick for tanks are small, tiny men.
Yeah.
Tiny men. So
Go.
in the pictures in the books, you see the tank. Look, wow, that's a pretty big tank. No, it's not a big tank. The people are really small.
Now I know how it
But
feels
the
like
one
for them
thing
to
the
stand
British
inside the
tanks have,
Matilda.
They all have a cooker for making tea on the inside. So British tanks have always had the ability for a hot
This-
drink or a
Oh,
hot
you know
drink.
how the bullet
No one else has that.
so it doesn't hit the radio.
When the gun fires, it will go back to this thing here to make sure it doesn't go too far.
And also the gun picture.
Oh yeah, you're gonna get dirty by the way.
Don't be afraid
Yeah.
of getting dirty, Joe.
Your hands will be black by the end of the day.
Okay, just switch your face to the side.
It's more room in here.
Yeah.
Alright, so come over here.
I'll stick it on.
Alright, you coming out, Tank Commander?
Yeah.
Alright.
Where do you want to go now?
Driver.
Okay, come off the front then.
I'm going in
Hold that to the hatch, yes.
Push down.
And
There
then
you go.
pull your leg up.
but that is split.
I just try to move. Yeah. Okay.
Alright, Caden, you out?
You got
You're
it.
out
You
there.
got it.
Well done.
Good job.
This is like a yoga class as well, you know? You gotta go. Feet first.
Oh, if you're lucky, see if you can find the escape hatch.
There is one on Matilda.
Yeah, it's on the bottom. I
The
heard.
Sherman has escape hatches.
Get a look here.
Sit down properly, Kaden. Move your. Move.
Put your butt on the seat.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're not doing it right.
I can't drive a tank like that.
I think you're too small.
Sit inside, all the way inside. Yeah.
Well, we
cannot take a picture of
you.
Yeah.
Oh my
I like
god.
how people feel like when they're driving
How,
the Matilda.
how the
So the gates, the new gate. What's this? This is a PT-76. The Russians made it in 1960, and they used it right up until the early 80s. But you know what's special about it?
Then it's
Hold on.
very flammable.
It floats. It's a bathtub. It floats. The reason it's like this is because the Russians built it. The Russians were going to invade Western Europe in the Cold War. Western Europe was full of rivers running north to south, and they wanted a vehicle that can come up to the river, dive straight in, go across, and come out the other side. Okay?
So basically it's like an amphibious
Yes,
vehicle?
it is. It is. But because it has to displace a lot of air and be light, it's very thinly armoured. The armour's good enough for bullets. That's a bullet hole right there. See that? Bullet wound. And shrapnel. That's what this is designed for. This has a spray of machine gun bullets across the body of the tank. So these were used by the North Vietnamese in the Vietnam War against the Americans. The only tank-to-tank battle in Vietnam between the North Vietnamese and the Americans were these vehicles and M48s that happened at some fire support base. I forget what it was called. But
Sounds kind of one-sided.
yes, one side. But of course, if your tank floats, you must have a bow plane that folds up and breaks the surface of the water. If you don't, the waves will just flood over your vehicle.
And then around.
It's propelled through water being drawn through those vents on the back there, for those of you can see them, and it's pushed out through some hydrojets on the back. So water is pumped out, that's how you propel yourself through the water. Listen to me and
What's
forget the
Panzer
Panther.
IV?
Alright,
We go one by one.
You
Caleb.
want to get the Panzer IV as well? This is really rusty. This thing's not restored.
Yeah.
So, this is a Panzer IV. Can you tell me about it? What is it?
It's a Panzer IV.
Alright.
It has a 75mm gun.
Uh-huh.
It can be turned into another Panzer IV.
Wait, what?
Like a different one.
Correct. Or Stutz and, well, they're not Stutz, but yeah, Panzer IV's assault guns, that's correct. The chassis is used for multiple, there was anti-aircraft guns on them and all sorts of things. What else? How many types, variants were there?
3.
No?
10.
10, right?
A through J, right?
Yeah, J.
Is that
Oh,
10?
I thought it was
About 10.
I thought it was
It is? Well done. The math's good. Yes. So A, B, C, D, blah, 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 okay? Because I don't know my alphabet, so I just... So, what does that mean to you? 10 bearings. Whoop-de-doo. What does that mean? Boring, right? What that means to you is this was a great tank design because it could take each of the upgrades that it was given through those 10 times. Those upgrades were thicker, heavier armor, longer and longer guns, okay? More power in the engine. An auxiliary engine was put on them as well. This is here because you don't want to run the big engine if you just want to sit there, use the radio, or move the turret, right? So why not turn on a smaller engine and just have the power to do those things, okay? But this was a luxury item. By the time the J's were being produced, this was gone. They weren't going to do this. They didn't have time anymore. So where did we find our World War II German tank? Where did we get this one from? What country did we find it?
Berlin?
Berlin, no?
Syria. No? Oh.
Siberia.
No, he was right, Syria. Correct. The Israelis captured this vehicle on the Golan Heights in 1967. Why? What was a Nazi tank doing in Syria in 1967? Well, the French, God bless them, after the Second World War, sold the Israelis 500 Shermans, and they sold the Syrians 200 Panzer IVs. And the Syrians used them right up to the early 1970s to fight the
70s.
Israelis. So now it's a good chance to look at how tanks work. Tanks all work on the same principle. An engine, transmission out to 2 wheels, only 2 wheels, the drive wheels, the wheels with the teeth. They drive the tracks round. All the other wheels you see are just free flowing. They're just spinning in midair, right? They're there to spread the weight. To turn a tank, you have to steer a tank. There's handles in there, you know what they're for? What?
They're like going forward, backwards, and then turning.
To turn. How does it work though?
So like when you go like all forward, it's like you go forward, all back.
But what you're doing is you're pulling on a brake. You're applying these. These are brakes right here. So you think about it, if you're going even, you start braking on one side, the tank's going to turn that way, isn't it? Well, that's how you turn tanks. And that principle is still used today, even though they've got hydraulic systems now, and there's actually a steering wheel in modern tanks. But the principle's still the same. You're still braking one side and not the other. So that's how that works. Okay, so that's how you steer a tank. All right? Okay. So the workhorse of the German army in the Second World War, forget your Panther, forget your Tiger. This is the tank Germany did it with, all right? Conquered Europe. They were making this tank in 1939. They were still making this one in 1945. Okay, it's an important fact to remember. Armour at the beginning of the war, this slab of steel was only about 3/4 of an inch thick. By the end of the war, it was 3.5 inches of steel being welded on there, okay? 5 men it would have been in this. Machine gun radio operator, driver, and 3 men in the turret. This vehicle is not restored. It needs to be restored to mint condition. But, yeah, there we go.
Are there plans for it to be restored still?
Absolutely, yes.
But just be careful. It's unrestored, so there's a lot of rust, a lot of sharp edges in there. Okay. Watch your surroundings. Everybody else too who goes in there.
Yeah, my dad.
Sticking out that you can trip over. Watch what you're doing.
So you want the driver's seat?
I was in it.
Okay. let's go
Be
there.
careful, right?
Okay.
Like you said, there are a lot of sharp objects, so watch where you step.
Yep.
Cool. Feet in.
That wasn't me, right?
Oh, you're down, ready? Alright, come on in. Who's next?
Hit it.
There's
Go.
tons of room in this
Commander.
one because it's not restored.
Oh my god, this is so not restored.
Oh.
I think that was the point that he's made like 7 times already.
Alright, you can get in the sides if you want.
Right, you go in, get in. Yeah, watch out for the fume vents, kid.
The periscope just sees black stuff.
Well, it's not restored. What can I tell you about it? I warned you. Alright, so come on in. So if you remember, The Germans would put their both feet first and they would pull themselves in, alright? That's how you do it.
Another periscope.
So,
There's 4 periscopes.
Well, this one's like bent.
Oh,
Yeah.
one of
well,
the periscopes
don't worry, you can't bend it anymore, believe me.
One
A
of the
shell hit
glasses
that.
broken.
Hey Jonas, this is where the commander sat. You're sitting right now where the commander was of the tank.
Both feet
Yeah,
first.
this is
There you
the
go.
commander.
Both
This
feet
is the
first.
seat where the
Sit on the
commander
edge.
was.
Good job.
So he can
Both
see
feet
out of 4
in.
spots.
Alright,
Yeah.
Is there a seat for him at
Usually
least?
road on top. And
There's one rusty
you can see
piece.
everything.
Oh, there's no seats. Oh my gosh.
Oh, what
Only
if
for
what
the
if the
commander
controls
doesn't
still
see.
work?
Alright, well, in you get.
Look, what if
We can't be sure of the stability of
Don't-
all the objects inside.
Let's just jump on the floor, it's okay.
Okay.
I got lowered in through there, so I understand this.
Look what I found.
How you doing, kiddo?
You're right. This is very unstored.
Yeah,
More room compared with this one.
at least.
And look.
Kiddo, be
if you
careful, okay?
close
Watch
this
where you
window,
move.
You could get
It's in that one, yes. It's outside.
Oh my god, this thing is like so rusted.
Yeah.
Those
Kiddo, when you're done, just come out, okay? I don't want to poke anything.
You could see like
Alrighty, so let's do a few more. Let's jump back to modern times. Jacques' favourite tank, also the saddest tank in the collection.
Oh.
Jacques died of cancer and they put his body on the back of that tank in a box and they drove him up the hill and they buried him. He was buried on top of the hill there. It's his favourite tank because he was interested in tank technology, not necessarily the history of the guns. He would like the technology that went into tanks. And so this is a classic example of a ton of brand new technology rushed into a design without any proper field testing of the systems on the tank. So this tank had some huge, huge problems. Let me go through them with you, okay? The first was, it had to be air deliverable. It had to fit in an aeroplane. So in the mid-60s when it was designed, there were no big planes. So they had to make the tank small enough to fit in the plane. So they made the hull out of aluminium to keep the weight down. Okay, now aluminium armour is okay for bullets and shrapnel. It's useless against mines, RPGs, or 50 caliber machine guns. So in Vietnam, where this was used, it was very easy to penetrate the armour on these things. That's the least of its problems. The Army said it has to fire the Sheridan anti-tank missile, which is an infrared guided missile. That's why there's a big gun on it, okay, a tube launcher. Okay, so far so good. To aim that missile, you have to use an infrared device. And the infrared device is located right there. And it was discovered that if you shine the light directly in that device, the sight wouldn't work properly. So that if you think about it, if this tank was in Western Germany and the Russians attacked from Eastern Germany with the sun rising behind them, you wouldn't be able to fire the missiles because of that, okay? Next problem. The Army said, well, it can't just fire a missile, it's got to fire like a big bang shell, right? Well, that meant that the shell they fired from it was 152 millimeters in diameter. That is a big shell to fire from such a light tank. And when they fired that gun, the recoil was so massive, the entire tank would come up off the ground and crash back down again.
Wow.
And the concussion from that action wrecked the electronics that fired the missile. So the two systems never, ever worked together properly. You couldn't do both systems at the same time. If you turn the turret off the side and try to fire the maximum round, it would throw the tank on its side. It would flip it on its side. It was crazy. It was used in Vietnam. They shipped them to Vietnam. They didn't fire the missile. They didn't fire the big shell. What they did, they fired a shotgun blast of little plastic flechettes into the jungle, you know, to kill lots of snakes and monkeys. The veterans that used it told me you could make the systems work in this tank. You needed 3 things. You needed fuse wire, cardboard, and duct tape. You needed fuse wire to bypass the electrical systems that failed, and you need the cardboard and the duct tape to tie stuff down on the inside so it didn't fly off the walls when the gun fired. So that's the M551 Sheridan story, okay? There we go.
Oh wow.
In 1966, this represented 20% of the US defense budget.
Wow.
So it was billions being wasted. Mint condition. If he couldn't get authentic parts, he went back to the people that made the tank in the Second World War and he had them make parts for it.